Hey guys, this is Austin. It's been 7 years since the PS4 and Xbox One were released, which means only one thing: time for the next generation. At this point, both the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X are officially coming out, so that leaves me with 4 questions. When do they come out? How powerful are they? What exactly is new? And how much will they cost? The release dates are pretty straightforward. Both Sony and Microsoft have gone on record saying that their consoles will be coming out holiday of 2020, which very likely means either October or November of this year. If it's anything like last generation, they'll likely come out really close together. Back in 2013, the PlayStation 4 came out exactly 1 week ahead of the Xbox One here in North America. One thing to consider are the announcements. So Microsoft, of course, surprise dropped a ton of information on the Series X back at the Game Awards last year. However, Sony, while they've been talking about the PS5, have yet to do their official announcement for it yet. So, based on rumors, we should expect that to happen very soon, so make sure to subscribe to the channel so you're kept up to date with the latest on these next-gen consoles. A difficult question is exactly how powerful are the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X? Now to start out with, we actually do have a fair bit of official information. Both the PS5 and Series X are taking advantage of AMD technology on the CPU and GPU side. Processors are likely to be one of the biggest jumps. So Xbox as well as PlayStation this time around are sticking with an 8-core design, however it will be taking advantage of the latest Zen 2 core from AMD, which as we've seen in the PC space with Ryzen is incredibly impressive, especially when you compare it to the last generation consoles, which had pretty weak Jaguar CPU cores, which were essentially mobile chips. It makes a huge difference. In fact, we actually did a video where we built a PC as close to PS5 spec as possible, and we saw something in the neighborhood of about a 3 times performance improvement going from those old school last generation console CPUs to this new generation. It's going to be a big leap. Graphics are where things start to get a little bit more interesting. So again, both Sony and Microsoft are opting to go with AMD Navi GPUs, which is pretty much what happened last generation, in that the Xbox One and the PS4 had very similar graphics, just slightly differently configured, and I expect that to be the case this time around. So in addition to the Navi GPU core, we also should see much faster GDDR6 memory. Now that's what we know officially. However, if we take a little trip into rumor town, a lot of things are lining up that the PS5, while it will be significantly more powerful than the PS4 Pro as well as the Xbox One X, will still be at a power deficit compared to the Xbox Series X. And the reason for that is really straightforward. It seems like Microsoft are spending a lot of money and a lot of engineering on just simply brute forcing their way to a more powerful console. So we're talking about a larger chip as well as higher clock speeds and the cooling to support that. Funnily enough, we actually have more information on this thanks to Phil Spencer, the head of Xbox, who recently changed his Twitter profile photo to be a shot of the chip inside the Series X. Now, while there have been a lot of attempts to sort of figure out exactly how big it is, it's kind of hard to tell since there's no clear reference point in that photo, but I do think it's a very safe bet to say that this will be larger than the Xbox One X chip, and especially considering that it should be on the 7nm process, expect a ton of power packed into this guy. Oh, nicely done. I think you made that, right? But there is a wrinkle to all of this, and that is there actually might be 3 next generation consoles instead of 2. So for over a year now, we've heard rumors about an Xbox Lockhart console. Now this was something that was a little bit more akin to, say, the Xbox One S versus the One X. Still the same basic console, still capable of playing the same games, however, with a cheaper price tag and with less performance. So say Series X is aimed at 4K, this Lockhart, or what I'm going to call the Series S, will be aimed at something more like 1080p or 1440. If you're saving a couple $100, might be worth it. Now, in conjunction with all the talk about this Lockhart Series S console, there are actually quite a few leaked benchmarks and some leaked specs. However, I would take all of these with a massive pile of salt. Now, I think yes, pile of salt, not a pinch of salt, not a sprinkling of salt. You need a pile of salt, because some AMD researcher in some lab loaded up Windows and ran 3D Mark does not mean that's how powerful it is. But pile of salt aside, what you should, I think, expect if this Lockhart or Series S console does see the light of day is for it to be perfectly powerful. It's going to be capable of playing all the same games. It just won't be playing it at that same resolution, that same frame rate, that same graphical fidelity. Now, while the Xbox Series X is official, the supposed Series S is not official yet. And because of that, I highly doubt that we will see it come out this year. So my money would be on the PS5 and the Xbox coming out later this year, with this Series X coming out maybe early next year, just to kind of give a little bit of space on the launch. Now, when it comes to the performance of these consoles, while yes, both the PS5 and Xbox Series X will be capable of 8K resolutions thanks to their HDMI 2.1 ports, beyond that, I actually don't think that's really going to be the goal. Besides, who actually has an 8K TV at this point? Realistically, both consoles should be focused on 4K 60 frame per second gaming. In fact, Phil Spencer again has already gone on record as saying that that's really what they're targeting. They don't care about the raw pixel count, but rather the frame rate, the fluidity, and probably most importantly, the actual graphics that you're delivering. I mean, seriously, you could watch a lifelike version of, I don't know, Planet, what is it, what's Planet World? World Planet? What's the nature doc that everyone loves? Planet Earth? You can watch Planet Earth in 720p. It's gonna look a whole lot more realistic than The Witcher at 4K on an Xbox. Pixels aren't everything. Marquez has been lying to you. You can watch MKBSD and it'll be just fine.
Jesus.
So alongside that, some games will likely take advantage of higher frame rates. So something like 120 frames per second and maybe like 1080p might be an option for more esports-oriented titles. And both the PS5 and Xbox Series X will have additional features, including support for hardware ray tracing, which will make the lighting much more realistic. And especially on the audio front, Sony's really been pushing their, I think they call it like ray tracing for audio, which is definitely not the correct term, but something along those lines of a much more realistic audio experience. Another big advantage will be standard SSDs across the board for this next generation. Now, this is something which will help for several reasons. First of all, the previous generation consoles, they had these huge worlds, but a lot of times they would take like a minute or two to launch. However, this time around, we should see significantly cut down load times. And as a side benefit, some companies, such as Microsoft, have been touting the fact that they'll be able to use this SSD as virtual RAM to give even more memory available for even bigger, more higher detailed textures and worlds and all that kind of stuff. Ultimately, this generation consoles will be more powerful, but it won't be a massive leap like we saw from the Xbox to the Xbox 360 or something. While yes, we will technically be capable of higher resolutions, really what I expect are more detailed game worlds in sort of smaller, more evolutionary steps. The bigger difference here is going to be, of course, in the actual games. Now, I'm curious to see how this shapes up, because obviously this generation with the PlayStation 4, Sony has dominated with dedicated and very sort of embedded studios that have been cranking out great content that is really exclusive to the PlayStation. Now, while Xbox has definitely trailed so far, a few years ago they purchased a ton of major studios, and a lot of those exclusive games are going to be coming out on the Series X. Although I will note that Microsoft has actually said that a lot of the Series X games, at least at launch and for the first year or two, will also be coming out on PC and Xbox One. So you can still probably experience these things, just not quite as shiny and new as on the Series X.
Or you get the PC version.
Or you get the PC version, which will probably look better than all of them. The next question is, what exactly is new this generation? Well, the easiest place to start is certainly with the physical designs themselves. And with the Xbox Series X, well, it's big. It's really big. Expect it to be roughly double the size of the Xbox One X, if not even a little bit bigger than that, which makes it less so a console and more so a small gaming PC similar to the one I have right behind me, very coincidentally. Now, this is necessary because you do need more cooling for the extra power of the Series X, but that being said, get ready to clear some space underneath your TV, or behind your TV, or beside your TV, or on the ground in front of your TV. Besides the fact that it has an optical drive and USB port up front, that's about all we know officially with the Series X. However, a photo of the rear of it got leaked on Twitter, and it looks very standard. HDMI, USB, optical audio. But what's kind of interesting is that there was a very clearly readable serial number, which someone was able to successfully register on the Microsoft site. So yeah, this is probably what those Series X is gonna look like around back. Like the Xbox, the PlayStation 5 will also have an optical drive, although this time they're using a custom disc which will have 100 gigabytes of capacity, as well as backwards compatibility on the PS5 with UHD Blu-rays and probably standard Blu-rays and DVDs and all that kind of stuff. Now, what likely will not have an optical drive is Xbox Lockhart, aka the Series S. Now, this is actually no surprise to people who have been actually, looking at Xboxes recently, as they've already brought out a all-digital version of the Xbox One S, and I wouldn't be surprised, especially considering that the Series S is supposed to be significantly cheaper, that in addition to cutting some of the performance and some of the specs, they'll also drop out that optical drive. If you want to buy a physical disc, you gotta get one of the big boys. Or just download them, which is probably the smart move. Now, a feature that isn't new is that the Xbox Series X should pretty much be a full replacement for the Xbox One. So peripherals, accessories, controllers should all come straight through and work no problem, as will all of the backwards compatible games. So you will be able to play Xbox One games on the Series X, as well as Xbox One and Xbox 360, Xbox Original, Xbox 360 and Xbox One, because that's even more confusing now. But the nice thing here is that really by getting a Series X, theoretically it's a drop-in upgrade. All of the current games, all of the current Xbox One gear you have right now will just work. On the PlayStation side, things are a little bit more ambiguous. So Sony has claimed that they'll have great backwards compatibility, but realistically that's probably going to mean it will just work with PlayStation 4 games, as the AMD architecture going from PS4 to PS5 is very similar. Now, while it would be great to have PS1, PS2, or even PS3 backwards compatibility, I'll believe it when I see it. We have had a brief look at what the controller will look like on the Series X, and surprise, surprise, it's almost the exact same as on the Xbox One with some slight tweaks. Now, the PlayStation is a little bit more interesting. Now, while officially they've talked a bit about the idea of having some back buttons as well as more customizable triggers, but they coincidentally just released an add-on for the DualShock 4, which not only adds those customizable rear buttons, but also an OLED screen to the back of the controller. I think that's maybe a little bit more than a coincidence, and I feel like this is a very good look at what the PS5 controller will look like, or at the very least some of the features that it will have. The last and arguably most important question about these next generation consoles is how much will they cost? Now for this, we have no official information yet. However, between the rumors and basic common sense, I think we have a pretty good guess. So when it comes to Xbox Lockhart, aka the Series S, we're likely looking at a console around $400. Move up to the PlayStation 5, and that one has been pegged at about $500, whereas the Xbox Series X will likely come in somewhere around the $600 price point. Now I'm curious, what do you guys think about these next-gen consoles? And don't forget to hit that subscribe button to make sure that you're kept up to date with the latest and greatest of the Console Wars V17, or whichever generation we're on right now. I think it's 9 actually, but